If you are an ADHDer, an adult, a late diagnosed ADHDer, or even a parent of an ADHDer that's attempting to see what the future might look like, and how somebody can be really honest about their experiences and then turn it all on its head, then this conversation with Claire is going to be the one for you. Thanks a million for agreeing to do this with me today. We're going to talk about your ADHD journey primarily, really as a late diagnosed individual with ADHD. Would you be happy to share how you got to that place, how you got to your diagnosis in your 40s?
Sure. So I was completely oblivious to ADHD as being anything other than something that affected boys, young boys, and it's the usual. I think everyone just thinks of ADHD as being something that's very sort of a male affliction, as I used to think of it anyway. And then when I was 40, having had just a really chaotic life, but just always thinking that was me and that chaos followed me everywhere. And it got just too chaotic. I burnt out spectacularly on the day of my 40th birthday party. I just woke up, cancelled the whole thing, cancelled absolutely everything. My poor family and friends had to go ahead and do the whole thing without me. Not the whole lot, but they didn't always turn up to a whole. But yeah, my family, they all went out for the meal without me, and I sat in the garden and just, well, now I know it was complete overwhelm. I just sat there and stared for a good day or two. But leading up to that point, the 2 weeks before, I had quit my job again and just slowly and quietly quit everything, and then just shut down completely. And then 2 months, I'd say, I just had, I mean, I called it a breakdown then, because that was what it felt like. But actually now I just know that it was total and utter burnout, and it was 40 years of burnout. Then I self-diagnosed online a few months later, but it wasn't until not last year before, 2023, that I had my diagnosis. I was on the NHS list for 2 years, then went private because it was taking so long. And then literally the week after I went and got my diagnosis privately,
Wow.
when NHS appointment comes through. So I actually went and got that done as well, because I just thought, yeah, I want to have two sets of doctors tell me that I've got this. And here I am now. But actually, I'd say that was, as I'm sure lots of people know, that was just the beginning, and I'd say that actually the year after was the hardest bit, because it's unravelling and grieving a whole life as well. But I won't talk about that.
Sure. Like you mentioned a couple of things there that, like, as I was late diagnosed at 43, and you talk about the burnout, which immediately triggers. I'm kind of going back on. I could probably think of a few times that that's happened in my lifetime, but like big events and big situations, I really only appreciated that this Christmas. I actually had a conversation with my husband when he says to me, he goes, "You are always so contrary at Christmas." What do you mean? I said, "We get it organized, we get it done, you know, I tick all the boxes and I do all the things we're supposed to." He goes, "Yeah, but you were just so cross until Christmas morning, as soon as the last present's open." And then he said, "You just go,
yeah,
we've done it then. It's I've moved beyond." And I can understand everybody feeling pressure about Christmas and getting things right, but it's the perfection kind of element of it, where you have to not only get it right for your own kids and your own family, but there's Christmas parties at work, there's Christmas parties with social groups, there's all these people out and about anyway. Even if you're not out and about, they're all out doing the 12 pubs, and there's just so many get-togethers and events and end of year, this, that and the other. I'm just oh, that's a lot.
I think neurotypical people obviously put themselves under a lot of pressure. A lot of neurotypical mums do. But I think the sad thing I realised with this Christmas is, before this Christmas, I have never had joy out of any of it. I've seen everything like this, like Christmas, big things, as, right, we just get through it. It's got to look good on the surface. Everyone else has got to have a really amazing time. And then that minute I can tick that box off, it's done. It's like the kids' birthday parties, anything like that. There was zero joy in it. It was just something that was like, well, that's good, because now everyone can see I'm holding everything together. It was awful. And now I actually, God, this Christmas was so bizarre. But actually, it was the first one. I didn't cry at all on Christmas Day, and I let everything go. I just said, we're not going to have it at the table. We're going to have it on the coffee table. We're not going to, I let so much of it go. I mean, for me, it was
And the
huge.
world didn't.
No, and I actually really enjoyed it, and it was nuts because you could tell that the kids they were just waiting for me to burst into tears. It was really weird, and actually, yeah, it was quite a weird one. And thinking that might be the way going forward now is really exciting. I might actually get to enjoy occasions this year rather than just thinking, all right, let's steel ourselves to this, let's get through it, and then
Yeah.
it's done, and we can finally then just have a day or two burning out afterwards. I mean, that's rubbish. That's not a life. That's just, yeah, it's,
And then you're tired when, if you do have to go back to work or anything like that, you're wrecked. Like, you don't have a break.
No.
It's interesting to me, like, when you're talking about that, it's the self-advocation, I think, is the bit that I know I've found the hardest. And it's the little things like that, like acknowledging that, hang on, it doesn't need to be at the table. The coffee table is grand. We're all chilling. Everybody's happy. Why do we need to do it there? Where I would have certainly in the past argued with myself that this is how it's supposed to be done, or I don't want to be the oddball looking like I'm not trying, or whatever it was, and it's understanding that that's how I need it to be done in order for all of us, because I'm sure your kids enjoy it better if they know that you're relaxed. In order for all of us to enjoy it, this is how it should be done. Who cares where you're eating your dinner? But
Absolutely.
understanding that's not being unprepared or lazy or all these things that I'm traditionally or used to telling myself it is, and that it's actually understanding that this is what I need and everybody else is also going to benefit from that too. Yeah, and it might be tiny, but it's huge, really.
Yeah, and also the chances are that as a neurodivergent a parent, your children, you're going to have, probably statistically going to have neurodivergence as well. And actually, all it does is ruin it for them, and it's setting them up to just follow suit. So actually, if you can show them that you're going to have a great time, even if it doesn't look this, like a Hallmark card, then I don't know, you're kind of breaking that cycle. I just feel bad that I kind of spent 16 years, creating this ridiculous like tableau of, oh, look at it, look at it, it's like something out of a Dickens novel. It's not, that's not realistic. It's, it's a mess, it's chaotic, and it should just be relaxing and whatever it looks like. Yeah, so it was kind of sad that I only realised that now, but actually, I've got enough time to now.
And how have you found then the mourning process? Like, they say a lot of people, especially if they're late diagnosed, that they'll go through the morning. I haven't found it so much and I think it's simply because I was at a place in my life where I was quite content with everything that I had when I found out. And I was able to look back and go, well, if I had have found out then, nobody would have believed me. There was no resources, as a woman in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, whichever, like, people wouldn't have believed you because it was a boy problem. And there wouldn't have been resources because it was only for those few that were literally climbing the walls. So I just go, yes, things might have been different, but I wouldn't have ended up where I was quite happy to be.
Yeah.
But I have seen a lot of people, even my own kids, to some extent, as they were diagnosed, I've seen people struggle with that. How have you found it?
I think it happens, like you just said, it happens when it has to happen.
Yeah.
And I think only when you reach that absolute point of crisis and you are aware that there is some kind of not a safety net, but there's some kind of something that feels like, okay, I've got to let go now because this is now, it can't continue. And then I think only at that point you let yourself, your body just goes, yeah, okay, it's now. And I think because it was on my 40th, I think it was just that I was thinking a lot about the future. I was thinking about my marriage. I was thinking about everything. And I think at that point it was like, okay, you know what? We need to do a total turn off the computer, turn it back on again. It's a total factory reset. Yeah. And I've forgotten what you just said.
No, I'm just thinking.
Actually answering the question.
You're all right. No, it's just about the sense of mourning. But go you for doing that, because I think even outside of being neurodivergent, both being women, being mothers, and sometimes even just being human, we're not very good at seeing that we need that factory reset when it's needed. There's a tendency often to push through. But B, it's really brave. And I mean brave. And not in any patronizing way, because I don't know if I have it in me to do it. It's really brave to be able to go, no, I'm drawing the line here. Like, this is where all of this stops. It's too much or not right for me or whatever it is. and I'm going to reevaluate the situation and move forward with things that nurture me, that keep me at my best as such. And it sounds, the words make it sound like it's something that's going to be easy to do, but when you have a partner or a job or kids or a house, all these other things, like, that's a big it's a big decision to make, and an even bigger one to actually see through. And I've the greatest admiration for you doing that. Even thinking about it, sometimes I go, oh, I don't know, would I be and then I just move on.
Yeah.
Fair dues.
It is brave, but also I've got to acknowledge all the people I let down in the process. And when I say let down, I should rephrase that really. But it felt like I'd let them down a lot. And now I can, only with like therapy and everything, I now know that I didn't let them down. I was letting myself down. But I did. I had to leave a job where a lot of people were relying on me. I had to let my family and friends down. I had to let my husband down, who we were just saying, I've only just separated from. And I knew that diagnosis, and he knew the day I got diagnosed, because I sent him an article a couple of days later, and it was saying about a woman who had a diagnosis, and then she realised that she was going to have to split up with her husband. And it was really telling. He sent me a message just saying, so we're pretty much doomed then. And I remember thinking, yeah, we are. This is the beginning of the end. And yeah, a year later, I asked for a divorce. So I do feel like actually I had to unfortunately that reset sometimes means that you've got to just start from scratch, which is not great. Obviously, the children, you can't just go, sorry guys, can you just pop somewhere else because mummy's starting again. But everything else literally had to just go. And a lot of friends had to go. Well, they'd already started to go at that point anyway. I think that made it easier as well, was I just knew the ones that were going to stick around, and there were enough of them that I knew I'd have a really good support system around me. And they're still here, which is really nice. So, yeah, it's good. And I think I was thinking about this when I was driving the other day, and I was thinking about safety nets and accountability, and I talk about accountability a lot when I'm working. The more accountability I have, the more I get done. It's external accountability. So the more I tell people I'm going to do something and mouth off about it, the more I think, okay, I've got to do this now. Whereas if I keep things quiet and don't tell people, I just can then just stumble along and get on with it and fail.
Yeah.
So that's why I tend to sort of go, rah, 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 this is what I'm doing. And then everyone will sort of check in going, oh, how's it going with this? And I'm like, yeah, actually, I don't want to look like
better do that. Yeah.
And with safety nets as well, I think in relationships, without going into too much detail, I think with relationships, if you're an ADHD woman and you've been married to someone for years and they've got to know this version of you, I think probably you've also kind of settled into a dynamic where you've let them help you, and they've maybe wanted to fix things for you to help you, and then you end up one day realizing you can't do anything, and you just end up, then it's easy to get into debt. It's easy to let all these not healthy behaviors come to the surface and just keep going with them, really. And yeah, so I'm only realizing now just what a pickle I got myself into, and now I'm having to learn all of this again. It's a bit embarrassing at age 46 having to, finally work out how my mortgage is paid and stuff like that. It's dreadful to have to admit that, because obviously my friends have been doing this for years. Some of them haven't, but actually I'm embarrassed that I've got to this stage, but it happened slowly, and my husband was just trying to be lovely and take that side away from me. But yeah.
There's plenty of people that even today are learning how to use washing machines for the first time. So I wouldn't worry about that. Even outside of ADHD, some couples will part and they'll realize there's things like, I can cook. I used to cook better when I was younger, post school, but I'm not interested in it. My husband cooks all the time. He's interested. He's really good at it. If the two of us were to part ways tomorrow, I would be living on fish fingers and waffles for the next 10 years, because I just don't care for it. But in the same vein, like what you're saying, I had a discussion with my husband recently after speaking to a friend of mine in work whose wife was diagnosed with ADHD. And he was saying that she had gone away for a few weeks, it was 3 or 4 weeks, just to get her head around it all. And he said that he realized that over those 3 weeks while she was away without him, how much he didn't have to do. And I was like, tell me more. I don't understand. Because I went back to my husband with it after. It's just what you're saying. I hadn't really appreciated that at all. And And he was saying everything from like, in the case of my husband, it would be a case of if I'm going out the door, he'll be like, have you got your keys? Have you got the tickets to wherever you're going to? Did you put fuel? He'll put fuel in the car because he knows I'll leave it to the very last minute. I'll do it. But he'd rather know it's done in case for some reason it doesn't work very last minute or air in the tires or whatever. You know, he'll always leave out food because he knows if I get hyper focused and I could lose the whole day and I won't, or he'll come, so every now and again you'll see an arm come in the side of my screen with food because I'll forget about it and then I'll go downstairs and I'll get my way through a packet of Penguin chocolate bars or something like that instead. All those little things that I thought were just kind of quirky, and I realized what they are. And I remember coming home after speaking with my friend and saying it to my husband after. I said, do you feel like that? I said, do you feel like you're actually having to mind me, is the way that I had put it. You know, I understand all the things that you do. I said, the more time I spend thinking about it, the more I realize what you do. And he was like, well, yeah. We actually holiday separately a lot, which I know my mother can't get her head around. He takes 3 or 4 days a couple of times a year and he goes off and he drinks coffee and reads books in the quiet because he's a stay-at-home parent, so he gets away from all of us. And I tend to go with my sister. Sometimes I'll go with him, but I go with my sister because me and her like to just eat, sleep, and go to spas and things like that and nice cafes, whereas he likes to walk all over the city and see everything all at once. And I'm like, no, thank you. But we got to a point where we understood that. And I think what I've learned since then is, since the diagnosis really, or since that conversation with my friend, is to identify how many things he's doing for me and to try, in my case, to try and identify if there are things he's doing for me because he likes to, and it's an act of love, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Or is he doing them for me because he doesn't think that I can do them? Or I've never shown him that I can do them, and trying to identify those things and figure, or just even to talk to him about, in my case, about like whether I am capable of doing those things or whether it's just a shortfall for me. Like, you know, the biggest one I do all the time is there's 3 flights of stairs between this room and the kitchen downstairs. He's always in the kitchen. I'm always in this room. So if he says to me, when you go up to your computer, will you make sure and do X, Y, and Z? By the time I've gotten up to my computer, I haven't even remembered I was speaking to him. Never mind that I have to do X, Y, and Z. So he sends me a message on WhatsApp because he knows it will pop up on my computer when I get here. And then I'll do the thing and send it down to him. And my kids have learned that too. And I'm like, I should really figure out, but I have never figured out a way of remembering it other than saying out loud, you know, I don't know what it is. Send the bank details, send the bank details, send the bank details as I'm going up the stairs.
Yeah, that's what I do.
If I stop for anything on the way up, forget about it. I'm not going to do it. Short-term memory is terrible. But, you know, something like that
works out how to manage you.
Yeah.
And you don't even realise they're doing it.
No.
And I mean, we're talking like 3 times a day, I'll just be shouting out, can someone ring my phone? Can someone ring my phone? Because I've just obviously left it on the car roof again. And, you know, they're just so used to it now. They know, and like you said with your husband having to give you snacks and stuff, my eldest will say, Mum, you need to eat something. And I'm like, yeah, I do actually, because I don't know if I had lunch. And whereas actually, you know, I'm so used to doing it for them and running these 3 little lives but I think that applies to a lot of mums. You know, it's the whole sort of
absolutely
plain mask thing. Yeah, I think really when I sort of crash, they can see it coming and I can't. So it's nice that they're looking out for me, but actually I really ought to, well, now I am.
Start to identify it,
and actually sort of start
the same in mind. They'll see the signs, like he'll see the signs usually before the rest of them. It's usually when he sees me retreat to a corner and I'm playing games on my phone.
Yes.
And it's like, I won't interrupt her because I know that she's at that point of which she's likely to go, fuck off!
Yeah, absolutely.
Just give me 10 minutes even and I'll reset. Like.
And you saying that, I hide in the toilet.
The only place you can be alone.
Yeah, I used to do it a bit, but then last year it really got to a point where I was hiding in the toilet a lot. Now looking back, it really wasn't that normal, but it became just like, I'm just going to go sit in the toilet for 5 minutes, and everyone was just sort of talking to me through the door, and you know, I'd just be sitting there, just not with my phone, just looking at the sink. Just de-escalating, because it was the only room with a lock on the door, and then I come out and get on with everything. But it was like having a fag. I'd just go and have a toilet.
The reset, quick reset. But at least I think, like for me now, a lot of those things are really, I can see them. I couldn't see them before, you know, and only if somebody went, "What are you doing? That's weird," I would stop and think, "Is it weird?" You know, because it would seem really normal. But now I understand why I need to do things. And if I've identified something new as well, like my boys are 4, 2 diagnosed with ADHD, 1 is likely got like high functioning autism but isn't interested in a diagnosis, which is his right. And then the youngest one hasn't had any assessment as of yet. We'll wait and see how he feels about it. But one of the two that's been diagnosed, I discovered recently, I was like, I went to, like, he's terrible for waking up. Just can't get him out of the bed. But I discovered talking to him, he says, well, I can always get up if it's 15 minutes before I'm supposed to leave the house. But his alarm will start from an hour before, and I hear his alarm, and I'm lying awake listening to his alarm in his room, waiting for him to get up, and which he doesn't do till 15 minutes before. So what I've learned now is that if I ever want him for anything, I need to go and knock the door 15 minutes before he's supposed to leave the house to go do whatever it is. And then he'll do it immediately. But if I attempted to do that 20 minutes before, forget about it. He's like, I have to go back. I have to keep going back and calling until I get to the 15-minute window.
Are you the same though? Because I don't operate unless I'm in crisis mode. Like, I'm at my best when there's like...
Oh, really? I'm good at getting up.
Oh,
I'll talk to myself out of bed.
Alarms for absolutely everything. So I just have constant alarms going off all day. Like, I have to have an alarm.
He does.
So it's, I work with alarms. But with the crisis mode thing, I can totally identify that. I mean, you know, some people leave it till the last minute to tidy their house before people come round.
Yes.
And then...
you should tell them you're coming but not actually arrive, like, just getting to clean it.
Yeah, and then there's like one room that you just shove everything in. But I tell you what, the most bizarre one was last year. I was driving my daughter to, I think it was ballet lesson or something. It's just like a regular Saturday. And on the way, it was really bizarre because ahead of us, we saw in slow motion this guy go over the handlebars of his motorbike and land on the pavement in front of us because the car had pulled out in front of him. And without even thinking, I mean, I have no, there's no experience as a paramedic. But there I was, something kicked in my brain. I just said to her, stay here, got straight out of the car. I was in my boot with blankets. I ran over. I'm calling the emergency services. I'm directing everyone. I'm speaking to the guy. Don't
your mode, like,
everyone, like I'm, I mean, blatantly, I got this off some TV show that I've seen. I had no idea what I was doing. I was covering him up with blankets, telling him not to move, blah, blah, blah. And I was there till they arrived. And my daughter just said, that was just so weird seeing you in that situation, and actually you should probably be a paramedic or something like that. And I guess there probably are a lot of paramedics who have ADHD because, it's that kind of crisis mode and fixing things and helping. But it's just bizarre that I kick into that, whereas I should just sit in the car and look after my daughter. But no, it went to that extent. But that was
magic to see when you see somebody go into that mode. Like, I used to work in bars years ago before I ever got into any kind of corporate work, and I was always at my best when it was like when everybody else behind the bar was going, oh my god, we're getting slammed, what are we going to do? And I'd be flying it, no problem. I'd remember orders for miles. I'd have everything, just so, and I'd never, I would be just really, really on form. Like, and the same when I used to work in support centers, when there's a big crisis and everybody is calling in looking for support, then I was calm as anything and flying through it. The same thing, like, it's just, I guess it's what we're built for in that sense. But I'd love to have been able to apply it to things like, making sure lunches were organised for school. And
when it comes to anything useful, it's not like we're going to apply it to that. I used to think I was like an amazing multitasker, and now I realise it was just because all the windows in my head ever are still open.
Yeah.
Which comes in handy sometimes, but like you said, I'll just stand there with I'll tell you what, I made a real rub for my back. I'm vegan. And
did you need another challenge?
That's a long story, but and I can't go back now. It's been 7 years, and
wow.
I've just looked like such a knob if I did. My eldest is vegetarian. My daughter is she'll just strip a chicken with her hands, and she loves meat. And my youngest is just on a ASD beige diet. So every single mealtime, it's just like me with pots, pans, kettles, that whole thing. It's like a scene out of The Bear, and I'm just shouting, and it's nuts. But it all gets done, and everything gets to the table on time, and then I'll just sit there and weep into my dinner. I'm going out afterwards for an hour straight off to the toilet.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, so maybe, I don't know, there's all these careers that I probably would excel in, like, working in a kitchen, working in a really, Wall Street or something, just be permanently burning out every single weekend. So here I am working for myself, because now I'm my own boss and I can, I can get away with it.
Which actually nicely brings me to the next question I have, as such
That
there
was a
is,
good segue, wasn't it?
well done. So you created Crash and Learn. Tell me about what, I guess, inspired you to do it, and how it's supporting women in their networks.
It's quite funny because actually I had been talking to schools and going around since the diagnosis and doing some sort of building up a portfolio but not charging. Just wanted to just go around and talk about it all because I've done so much research. And then I started to work with HR departments, and this is where my sort of marketing experience and everything had come in. And it was going really well. And then there was an advert for doing a TEDx talk. Obviously, for me here, I fill in the form and think, yeah, that'd be amazing. And then I got it, which was really weird. And there were like 370 people that went for it in St Albans because it was the inaugural one. But what I didn't figure was I'd actually have to do the talk and stand up in front of lots of people and hold it all in my head, like 13 minutes of a script in my head, which, yeah, no amount of dopamine can get you through that. That was nuts. But I just thought, you know what, I think this is the moment that's going to then launch it properly. So as soon as I'd done that, the results when it went live was phenomenal. And just all the lovely comments and emails and everything I started getting, I then thought, actually, I think I'll do this, and it means I can manage my own time, work around the kids. And as much as it scares the living daylights out of me every single day that I have to go and do a talk or a workshop or something, and I mean, like, for days before, I'm an absolute bloody mess. The minute it's over and that box is ticked, actually there is joy in it now. There is joy in it. It's not like it was before. But yeah, that high is just like nothing on it.
Brilliant, yeah.
It really is. And now I've started getting bigger clients. I've been working with Warner Discovery, and that was nuts. And they asked me to come in a second time and do it. And I was like, God, that wasn't a fluke. You actually thought it was, you thought that was worth hearing again. So it's nice. It's just really, really incredible, the question and answer sessions afterwards, and working with with girls. I don't work with anyone that's below sixth form age, but working with these girls' schools and the school that my daughter goes to, and local places and companies, and just I don't want to say, oh, it's nice to give something back, because that sounds so worthy, but I just feel like I'm useful, and it's really nice to feel useful for the first time in years. Yeah, and hopefully it's going to stop a bit of the eye rolling, because the talks that I do, they're very, very open. They're very uncomfortably frank. And, but I insist on giving those raw details, because I think there's so many harmful assumptions and stereotypes about ADHD women. And I want people to know that it is not just about hyperactivity and lack of focus and being, a bit much. It rips apart lives, it rips apart families, careers, everything, and it leads to just awful mental health problems and suicide rates. It needs to be taken seriously. So yeah, I feel like I've found my purpose, which is really nice career.
But what was the key message in the TEDx then? Was that it?
The key message was basically about about my 40th, and it was about living an authentic life. It was about masking, which everyone does to an extent. And it was just saying, look, it took me this long to take my mask off, and now I don't want to put it back on because it's so harmful. And the only way that we're going to stop younger people from putting that mask on ever in the first place is if everyone around could just, bring their bullshit down a bit and not pretend that we're all doing okay. Inclusivity is never going to be, inclusivity is a bit of a buzzword. And I think actually it's better to just, if we could just all be a little bit more authentic, and just, it's hard because obviously you've got Instagram and that is, that's hard for anyone, but I think it's just adds this other layer if you're neurodivergent, because you buy into it, and you actually, for someone like me who spent a whole life looking at people on the telly and films and thinking, cool, that's how a woman behaves when she wants to do this, that's how a woman behaves when she wants to get a boyfriend, that's how I do it. And then just, dressing the part, acting the part, and, rehearsing lines. It's weird. And, to see, now I can see through, my bullshit filter is just so good now. And I just wish that I don't know. I think authenticity is coming back now. I think, it's, I really hope so, because I just don't want people to waste years and years and years, pretending when they could have found more joy and enjoyed life a lot more, and not wasted so much time just, burning out.
Absolutely. I think a lot of just hearing what you're saying there about, the masks you put on and stuff. I know I would have had, a theatre group I was friends with when I was younger, and then I would have had school friends, and then I might have had people when I was slightly older that I worked with, because I would have worked from when I was about 14 or so. And when I think about it, if all of those people had been in one room together, I would not have known how to behave. Would not have had a clue, because I was different with every single group, including family as well. And it's hindsight is great, like to look back and do those, but the panic that would strike me if I ever met one from another group while I was with a different one, with regards how to behave, and I wouldn't have understood it at the time, but understand it now, why it made me so anxious to mix those two things together.
Yeah, because you have a collection of masks that you put on and it's kind of people pleasing, and it's also it's just like social currency, isn't it? It's just social. It's just to fit in and not have anyone realise that you are struggling. Even though at the time you don't obviously know what it is because you weren't diagnosed. You just knew that you liked being accepted and...
Yeah. Fitting in was important.
Yeah, totally.
That was the key to it all. And if you felt like you were being accepted, then that's all that really, really mattered. And I used to think that was just a child thing, and then I thought it was just a teenage thing, and then I thought it was just an early 20s thing. It never stopped trying to do it. And then as soon as you get to a point in which you're not masking anymore, and you start to realize that the friends you keep beyond that and the people who stick around beyond that, then it's much more authentic, like you say.
Yeah.
Wow, it's like eating really expensive chocolate after eating the really naff stuff for years. It's so good.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And also, you don't have to keep up with all that bullshit that, there's music I don't really like that I listen to for ages. But there's all this stuff I used to do, and I can't stand it. And I guess that comes with age as well.
Yeah.
But also, it's just so nice just being the version of me and walking into rooms and just, I think a lot of people can't handle it, and that's fine. They have to take it or leave it now, really. And it was a shock to a lot of friends. They were like, "Oh, I'm not sure I really like this version of you." And it was like, "Well, this is kind of the one that I can do, really."
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can't handle it, then you're gonna have to go. Yeah, which is a shame, but actually, I totally understand why.
Better in the long term, at least you know who you've got.
Yeah,
there for the right reasons.
Yeah, totally.
Too, so you make customized strategies then for employers and educators. Like, how does that work? Have you some kind of examples that?
So I'm like a horse whisperer. I one of those like translators that you get at UN conferences. I guess it's like a translator. So I try not to actually work with the person with ADHD. And that sounds really weird, but because if I do, we end up just sitting there and talking, obviously, for 3 hours about things that aren't related. And also, I don't feel comfortable getting involved because I'm not a medical professional. I have to see it as a strategy-based initiative. So I work with the HR departments, and then I will ask them to come to me with the issues. Then I'll ask them to send me a communication from the person in question. I'll get it all together, have a little look at it, and then it's a little bit like detective work. I'll be able to sort of read into the problems that they can't see between the lines and say, actually, this is why this is happening. Try this, and I'll create a bespoke set of strategies for them to try. And it's not really anything from, it can be as basic as lighting and a stand-up desk or breaks and things like that. But a lot of the time, actually, it's asking the questions that the person with ADHD is too afraid to ask. Once those questions are asked, a lot of everything changes for them. So I'll say, have you considered that? Have they mentioned any problems with paydays and debts? Have they mentioned there are any problems at home? Have you noticed that they are drinking a lot of water suddenly? Have you noticed that, so all these questions that I know about, have they taken lots of time off? Have, this, that and the other? And then you can kind of say, well, actually, could you maybe suggest this? And with deadlines, things like that, do they really have to work to long deadlines? Can you check in with them every week on these? Try this strategy. If you set them a 3-week deadline, they're going to be doing the work the night before until 4 a.m. So
Yeah.
just do a sort of a 3-day check-in for those 3 weeks and, break everything up. So it's all these things that I now know that I sort of pass all that over, and it works. It really works. So I actually really don't get to work with the person with ADHD. I just hear that it's a success, and then if it needs a bit of tweaking going forward, and then what I do is I come back and check in to make sure it's not just a one-off quick fix, because I want to know that they're being supported. But because it has to go through the HR department because of legalities, I feel like everyone's benefiting, including me, because I can leave it at home. I don't get to know these people personally as well, which sounds really cold, but actually,
No, it sounds exactly like you'd want it to be done.
Yeah.
'Cause even as somebody who has ADHD, I think I'd like it to be, it feels like it's more conclusive if somebody who hasn't met me personally is, making the assessment of it as such, with regards what I need. I don't know, I just feel like HR would take that more seriously than me just asking for stuff,
Absolutely.
if that was the case.
And the nice thing is they know that someone's on their side. So it works as a setup. It works really well. And also, I just wish I'd had that when I was in work. So it's a service that I could have really done with. And also, the HR department's put me for workshops to train teachers, managers, and those workshops can be from anything on hyperfocus and how to really maximise hyperfocus potential to I do some Lego building ones, which it's all to do with distraction and concentrating and focus. And there's lots of sort of different ways of reaching people without just sitting there with not just sitting there with the PowerPoint and making them watch slide after slide.
Yeah.
So I try and get people to sit down, because actually if you're doing Lego together, everyone starts talking, and it's a really good icebreaker, I found. So and actually you'll find out a lot of brain types when everyone's building, and it's really interesting to see how people's minds work. And so it's really, really fascinating, my work. I love it, absolutely love it.
What are you seeing as the biggest challenges for women with ADHD in the workplace then?
Being seen as, well, they're totally misunderstood. They're seen as overly emotional, because they're seen as, I have to hark back to my own career and how I must have come across to everyone. One minute I'm absolutely on board and I'm amazing and I come up with all these amazing ideas, but they'll just never ever come to fruition. And after that happens time after time, I then get a reputation for being flaky, and I'm not flaky. But they don't know that at home I was just burning out, and they're getting up in the morning and actually getting into work used up all my brain power. The tube journey alone and choosing my outfit for the day just used everything up. And then if something went wrong, like someone shouted at me on the tube, I mean, that was it. I'd arrive in tears. And then I've got to try and do meetings and a whole day's work and social interactions on top of that. And I've got to do that 5 days running and then have a social life.
A lot.
Yeah, it's nuts. But I think even still don't think that people understand just how exhausting it is. But it's not exhausting like, I'm tired, I'm so tired. Everyone's tired, but this is just another level, and it's just also, it's the mental health. So I want people to be taken seriously. I really want women to be taken seriously and not gossiped about, and just, I want them also, if they get a diagnosis or they're self-diagnosed, to be able to say to their HR department about it, and for provisions to be put in place. And otherwise they haven't got a chance, and they will be putting time after time after time. And actually, if you can show the figures to an HR department that if they have staff retention and they look after their neurodivergent staff, they're actually going to, retain great staff. And it costs a lot of money to lose these staff. If you can retain them and their productivity levels go up, the company, as cold as it sounds, when it comes down to the finances, that's what they care about. They care about the stakeholders. They want the money coming in. And if you can actually translate it into figures, that's, and how it will improve those figures, and they will be bringing more money in and retaining staff, then they're interested. So, it's worth it for everyone, really. So it's a win-win, but I think that's it. It's just, I don't think it's going to be harder for the workmates to understand them, and, because everyone's got personal opinions, but if the HR department are behind them and they've got their back, then that's a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a major step. And you use humour to shine a light on the ADHD side of things. I've seen that firsthand. How are you balancing sharing that kind of the serious challenges with that lighthearted approach?
I think it's necessary because no one wants to feel like they're being preached to. And also, I have to laugh at a lot of the stuff that I did and I've gone through for 3 decades, because if I don't, I would stand up there and cry, because some of it's so embarrassing, some of it's mortifying, some of it is really just tragically sad as well. I choose to use humour. I told you a story, I think, when we spoke a while ago about that we were talking
Tell it
about,
again, though.
yeah, about the chocolate. So I went through a phase, I'm still really bad with it now, but I would just be focusing on one thing and be totally oblivious to anything else that I was doing. For example, I would have a mouthful of food and then I'd hold it in my mouth for ages. And it wasn't until I had to speak to someone on the phone or on a call, it would then just fall out of my mouth. And it was, it's things like this that you can't explain to anyone. You can't explain to anyone why you sit in Sainsbury's car park for half an hour in the car, listening to really loud music to psych yourself up to then be able to go and do the shop. And then I have to come back to the car, do the same again, drive home, sit on my driveway, listen to half an hour of music before I can then go into my house. It's just weird that it takes 4 hours to do a weekly shop with all this. But yeah, I think the funniest one to date is when I put chocolates in my bra for no reason, absolutely no reason. It was a Kit Kat, and it was when they had foil wrappers inside the paper sleeve, and I took a bite, and then the kids distracted me, and I just remember thinking, I haven't got pockets, I'll shove it in my bra under my shirt. Dropped them off at school, went into London, and then in a meeting, I don't know if someone told me or whether I just looked down and just saw that, yeah, my tits were just covered in chocolate. Everything was just covered in chocolate.
How do you explain that?
Yeah, you can't. You just look at everyone, and at the time I just remember thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to cry. That's the answer to this. Now I'd just be like, oh, well.
Yeah.
I'm going to deal with that later, and we'll deal with that.
How much of it can I salvage? Like,
yeah, exactly. Or, or just point to it, ADHD, you know what I mean? It's like, it wouldn't bother me in the slightest. But yeah, back then that was it. I'd be in the toilets for half an hour and I'd quit. I'd quit the job that evening. It was, it was just all these things that happened all the time. Like you said, it was quirky. It wasn't quirky. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. So yeah, and when you've got all these great stories to tell everyone. And
oh my God, so many of them.
Absolutely hilarious.
I always have a tendency I always say, even to my kids and my family, I said, there's never any risk of me becoming big-headed. If something really, really great happens, I can absolutely guarantee you that whether it's within minutes or days, I'll do something that'll put me right back in my place. And I had recently, I'm sure, since we're talking about your chocolate boobies, we'll talk about mine then too. We can both put it out there. But I was at an event, I was up for an award and I won the award. And like, that doesn't happen. I wasn't expecting to. I was completely overwhelmed. And then there was pictures and then there's people talking. There was a lot of like, which for anyone is a bit daunting. And I had this dress on that had like a netty kind of a bottom part. And it was lovely. It was a really nice dress. But before I was getting dressed with my sister before we went down, and I kept saying to her, will I wear this dress? Because you said to me before, no, don't ever wear that dress. I hate it. But this particular night she was saying to me, it's actually really lovely. Like, yeah, you should wear it. I bought about 3 different ones to wear. She's going, you should wear it. So I wore it. It was fine. I went down to the bathroom after having won the award, getting the pictures taken and won the award. And it was the last award of the night. So everybody was about to start filing out of the room as such afterwards, then going back in for like music and stuff. For the bathroom, and this is kind of important. So the bathroom is when you come out of the awards room. So I had to walk across the room the awards was in, through kind of a lobby, down 3 flights of stairs, into another lobby, and then into the bathroom, right? So I went into the bathroom, and what had been driving me nuts all night is I had a pair of those, the granny pants that suck everything on, so they come up to under your boobs. That was to keep everything in place. And then I had tights that I put on over it. So they kept rolling down, were driving me mad, pooching them up. I was like, it's some kid hooching them up all the time, which was not going well in my beautiful dress. So I went into the toilet and I took off these friggin' tights because they were driving me nuts, and I threw them in the sanitary bin in the toilet. Yeah. And then I came out of the bathroom. I was like, that's much better. I'm cooler now and they're not annoying me. And I went around the corner to where the sinks were. And then as soon as I got to the sinks and looked in the mirror, I realised exactly why I was not supposed to wear that dress. So it was like a chiffon bottom. No. And it was completely see-through.
No.
And I hadn't seen it because I was wearing black tights with black big granny pants and black shoes. So nobody had noticed it at the time. But as soon as I took them off, I looked like I was some sort of a wannabe film star who was going out in her knickers and a see-through skirt. So I thought, I wonder, can I get them out of the bin? Like, how sanitarily appropriate is this? And I went back, and of course they're gone down into the bin, and I didn't want them back that badly. And I figured, okay, I'll call Caroline, my sister, and I'll get her to go to the room, and I'd spare tights and bring them down to me. And then I'm sure I didn't have my phone because I was in such a fluster and a flurry after everything that happened, and not, I was just all these people kind of looking at me and in my space as such. That sure I had nothing but me and the clothes I was standing in. Well, less the tights now at this stage. So I decided to brave it. I went out into the well-lit lobby where there was a few people, up the stairs where I met a couple more people. And I'd say they must have thought, what a weirdo, because anyone who said hello to me, I was practically nose to nose with them saying hello, so they didn't look
Hello.
Got through the next lobby. So everyone was coming out onto the next lobby from the awards room at this stage. So there's a couple of people shaking hands and stuff. And there was one girl I met who I met her in person for the first time. We've known each other for years. And she got her colleague to take a picture with me. And we took the picture, and I smiled and went on about my business, thinking it was just like a shoulders up picture. Went into my sister and said, we have to go now. And I picked up the award, just left. And she's very good. She just chased behind me, and we went up to the room, and she thought it was hilarious. But I saw the picture on LinkedIn because the girl who took the picture posted on LinkedIn afterwards. Now, it wasn't as bad, because whatever way the lighting was, and that, if you look, you can see that I don't have the tights on, and you can actually see like the knicker line and everything else, but it's not so obvious. But on the night, like, my sister walked up to the room behind me while I was saying hello to everybody, and I could literally feel her pressed against my back. Because she stopped and looked when I told her what it was, and she goes, oh my God. And then she was pressed against my back.
Thank God for those people though. Like, yeah, you need like one of those minders that just
Exactly. And it's just one of those things, like, I find every time I do something that other people might go, geez, that's fantastic, I'm like looking over my shoulder going, yes, but what kind of stupid thing am I going
to do to balance out the absolutely.
There's always something. So
yeah,
there's never a risk of any big-headedness or me thinking that I'm bigger than
no, not at all.
Sure.
I met up with a friend last year who, when we were talking, and I hadn't seen him for 20 years, and when we met, he reminded me that the reason we met was because we both lived in North Finchley, I can't remember, somewhere in Finchley. And I used to walk from the tube back to my house, which was about 20 minutes on a pavement in London. And because of sensory overload, I hated wearing shoes. So I'd take them off when I came out of the station. Granted, this is in good weather, not if it was raining.
Yeah.
And I would just walk, not even thinking about it, barefoot from the station to my house every single day. Didn't give it a thought.
Most normal thing in the world to you. Like,
we started talking because of this. It's, I look back and just think, who does that? I was fully dressed for work, but barefoot. And
who does it sober? Like, you do that coming home from the club.
But it was just like, oh, that's really irritating me. And then when I'd done it twice and it felt good, I mean, I don't know how I didn't get, tetanus or, it was, oh, God, anyway. But it's
so appropriate in the moment.
Like, the knickers in my coat pocket and then putting them out, like, randomly on a train or something. And thinking, why have I done that? Like, why did I put that there? And just putting random stuff in places it doesn't belong. And
And I'll forget within seconds. Like, I could put something like that in my handbag, and I'll leave the house, and I'll be talking to somebody, and I will pull it straight out of my handbag afterwards and totally forget that I had put it there. So it's not like I'm accidentally pulling out, or it's not like I'm pulling it out to show everybody how like brassy I am or whatever.
Oh, and that's there. Yep, cool.
Makes perfect sense at the time. There's many a trouser pocket or coat pocket, something, you find the most random things in it. I'm like, what was I thinking? Like,
nothing. Quite clearly. I mean, this is the other thing. I was watching Peep Show. I've been rewatching it, and there was a comment in there that Jeremy was listening to someone and saying, no, not listening to them, but watching them, and they were sort of silent. And he was saying, I've got to pretend I'm listening now and just make these noises. And that's what it's been like forever. In my head, I'm like, I can see you, and I can see your mouth moving, but you've got we've got eye contact now. You can't have both. You've either got my attention, but you're not going to have like me listening, or no eye contact, and then I'm
actually listening, like moving around the room.
So used to doing that. Definitely. I can see
master of it, like master.
Yeah, but then I think actually maybe I'm not, and maybe people just think
it's when you go, really, when they say something that,
well, they just think I'm rude. They must have just thought I was rude. Whereas now I'm like, I wasn't listening for the whole time we were talking. Could you just give me the
highlight reel, please?
Yeah, that'd be really good. Which I think people appreciate, and then it gets the job done, and then I don't have to spend the rest of my life thinking, okay, what was that really important thing they told me when we first met?
And they know for the next time when they talk to you as well to just keep it in summary, because it's just not how you absorb things. Like,
absolutely.
Absolutely. So
expectation.
Yes. So we're nearly up to time, I guess, but I want to ask you what's next then for the Crash and Learn side of things. Can people get involved or help or do something, to support what you're doing?
Yeah, so phase 2, it was like you were saying about never getting too big-headed. Everything I did last year, I've got all this content from all the talks, everything. And of course, in the most ADHD way possible, I didn't do anything with it because it's so overwhelming. When I've done anything, that's it. I just keep it in a file on my desktop and I don't put it anywhere because I don't want anyone to just see it or talk about it, or I just want it ticked and then I'll move on to the next thing. And that's not good. So the big thing in the first part of this year is I'm now just redoing the website, getting it all up there, and I'm going to have to start marketing my product. Because usually I just sort of approach or I wait for people I know to say, oh, Claire, actually there's this woman I know and they're looking for this, and I just do that. Whereas actually now I'm going to start going after the companies I want to, work for. Yes, that's it. It's to actually get my own stuff done and get it live. And when the TED Talk went live on YouTube, I did not post it anywhere. I did one tiny Facebook post and that was it. And who does that? Like, you're supposed to. You were told.
It's great advertising.
To promote the shit out of it. And I didn't. I hid it. I didn't want to tell anyone because I was so mortified about people watching it. And then I still haven't. And actually, that's a big one. I'm going to...
It should be on your homepage of your website now.
Yeah, it's going to be. And it's not doing too badly considering I haven't, which is lovely. But yeah, I've just got to start with the self-promotion of it and stop that from feeling so overwhelming.
Yes.
I've got to work on the overwhelm, the personal overwhelm.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it doesn't just end up as box ticking, and I can sort of sit there at the end of the day and go, cool, right, that was good. Now calm down and let's work out what the next bit is.
Yeah, what's next?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like 2025 is going to be proper interesting for you.
Don't say that, because then it'll drink it and I'll end up crying over a donut again and it happen.
Not at all, not at all. I wish you all the very best for it, Claire, and we'll be keeping in touch to see how you're getting on.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jen.
No worries, honey.